Located in Hangzhou, the Region International Center is a massive building spanning nearly 300,000 square meters. It is the largest influencer apartment in the city and a symbol of China's influencer and live streaming industry. At its peak, nearly 20,000 female influencers and streamers lived and worked here, generating an economic output comparable to that of an entire country. For many newcomers, this building served as a first stop for those starting out in the industry. In 2025, during the annual November 11th shopping event, the Regal International Center feels unusually quiet. In its prime, rent here could reach 50 yuan per square meter per month. For a 150 square meter apartment, the yearly rent could generate as much as 90,000 yuan for the landlord. Today, the same apartments are rented out for just over 2,000 yuan, and the building's 180 units, 147 remain vacant. Not only did the Regal International Center face challenges, but top live streaming company Xinxuan Group also moved out of Hangzhou in April, relocating its hundreds of employees back to Guangzhou. The building they had previously rented, Highway Center Building 3, now stands empty. Even the Starbucks downstairs closed due to a loss of customers. In another high-profile move, Hong Kong business tycoon Tiffany Chen also vacated the office building Smartgate in Binjiang, a property in which significant investments have been made. Meanwhile, live streamer Crazy Xiao Yang also left Hangzhou's Bodhai Center in Binjiang. Hangzhou's office vacancy rate hit a record high of 27.7% in the second quarter of this year. The city is now witnessing a large-scale retreat of influencers, with the once prosperous live streaming e-commerce boom now a thing of the past. Back in 2012, Li Jiaqi's live stream on November 11th first pre-sale day generated 21.5 billion yuan in sales. Not long after, Wei Ya purchased the luxurious Jiaren mansion for 35 million yuan, aiming for even greater success. But the live streaming gold rush era is now over. Today, products in live streams are increasingly cheaper, and with declining traffic and sales, influencers' incomes have also significantly dropped. E-commerce business owners are now trapped by massive inventories and sky-high return rates, hoping for a surge in traffic to revive their businesses. Meanwhile, a constant influx of fresh graduate influencers willing to work for increasingly lower salaries has led to fierce competition in the industry. In June, the introduction of the e-commerce tax became the final blow, creating an unprecedented downturn in this year's November 11th event.
I
bet that if I didn't mention it's November 11th today, a lot of people wouldn't even know. Why? Because there are no orders. Whether it's from the malls or us delivery drivers, there's nothing. I even took a walk around the snack street just now, and there were no people. Where is everyone? Are they not shopping? I heard that e-commerce giant Jingdong has required all delivery drivers to be online today. Does that mean Jingdong is swamped with orders? Why are we the only ones with no orders? Except for the lunch rush, I've barely seen any orders, and during the rest of the time, it's just a blank screen. When an order almost came through, I was almost shocked. I'm not used to it. Can someone explain what's going on? Is this really the off-season? This off-season feels too quiet. It's like it's completely dried up. It's 1:30 now, and I just finished the delivery. A lot of drivers are saying that this November 11th is too slow, with barely any deliveries. They feel like it's not worth waking up at 4:30 a.m. My orders today aren't any more than usual either. This morning, I had 160 orders. Yesterday morning, I had 180 orders.
This year's November 11th has been overall a disappointing event. Once regarded as the barometer of China's consumer power, the annual shopping festival no longer holds the same must-participate appeal for many consumers. Both live stream influencers who participated a surge in sales but saw no increase, and businesses that stocked up in advance but face slow sales are facing the same reality. The economy is struggling. For a long time, the core appeal of November 11 was cheaper than usual. But now the constant low-price competition in e-commerce has squeezed the profit margin of everyday and common goods to their limits, leaving little room for promotional activities. As a result, businesses have resorted to inflating original prices and offering discounts to create the illusion of a price cut, tricking consumers into thinking they are getting a bargain. With increasing transparency, this tactic no longer works. The lack of excitement around November 11 is now evident. According to Baidu Search Index, searches for November 11 have declined for 6 consecutive years, with a sharp 60% drop in 2025 compared to the peak.
双十一也就这样吧。
November 11th, well, it was just like any other day for me. The number of orders was about the same, no pressure, just handled it easily. The only difference was that I had to wake up earlier than usual. My brothers have worked hard these past few days, and now that November 11th is over, it's time to rest.
双十一全部加早班。
For November 11th, I worked all early shifts, getting out early to complete orders. In an hour, I managed just 3 orders, earning 7.26 yuan. I didn't even make enough to buy a bowl of spicy soup. Just wasn't worth it.
现在来说没有那么有吸引力了。
At this point, there's not much appeal left, so I haven't bought anything this year. It really feels like consumer spending has downgraded. On November 12, BBC Chinese published a report featuring street interviews with consumers in cities like Shanghai, reflecting the public's fatigue with November 11 promotions and the views on the downgrade of consumer spending. What was once a shopping frenzy with people staying up all night to grab deals is now met with indifference, with many responding, "There's nothing worth buying," and the discounts are fake. In the past, people are willing to endure complicated rules and minimum purchase requirements to save money. Now they prefer to buy as needed, no longer holding on to the fantasy of big sales. Especially with the increasing economic pressures, people are less willing to place orders just because something seems cheap, and are instead more cautious and realistic about every purchase. This shift is not hard to understand, with slower income growth, rising employment pressure, and falling housing prices leading to reduced wealth. Many households have seen their purchasing power shrink. The issue of negative mortgage rates has left many feeling financially strained. The value of their homes is decreasing, but their monthly mortgage payments remain unchanged. As disposable income declines, it is difficult to maintain the old shopping habits of buying during every sale. Meanwhile, the younger generation, once seen as the main consumer force, has experienced a clear shift in spending habits. Rather than actively seeking rational consumption, they are being forced to accept reality. They do not reject consumption. Instead, they choose to lower their desires in the face of the gap between income and expenses. How can a college graduate struggling to find a job with a 3,000 yuan salary support a shopping festival that requires large cash flows? What's even more telling is that aside from Jingdong, other major platforms like Taobao, Tmall, Douyin, and Pinduoduo have not disclosed their sales data for this year's November 11th. The official reason is to avoid comparisons, but looking back, e-commerce platforms have never hesitated to loudly promote strong sales figures. The delayed release of data now raises questions about the true reason behind it.
今年双十一彻底凉了。
This year's November 11th was a complete letdown. How much did merchants lose? After more than 20 years in the industry, I've seen both a rise and fall of trends, but the emptiness of this year's event still caught me by surprise. 37 major platforms participated. The event stretched over more than a month, but the excitement was all show, while the chill was real.
The vlogger shared that the total online sales for November 11 reached 1.7 trillion yuan, which seems to represent a 14.2% year-on-year increase. But the reporting periods was a whole week longer than last year. After adjusting for this, the actual growth was even lower than 2022's 13.7%. Jingdong claimed a record high in transaction volume with orders up 60%, but JD's sales campaign started on October 9th, diluting the excitement by launching a month in advance, removing the sense of urgency that once defined the midnight rush. Tmall didn't even disclose specific sale figures, while Douyin and Pinduoduo only shared partial data. What's even more troubling is the current situation for merchants. Platform promotion fees have risen 30%, while the refund rate has increased by 10%. The results? Sales may have gone up, but profits remained stagnant, and some merchants are even losing money just to boost sales volume. Looking back to 2021, Tmall's platform itself achieved 540 billion yuan, while JD.com reached 349 billion yuan. At that time, there was no need to extend the battle lines or spend huge amounts of money on promotions. Consumers stayed up late waiting for discounts, and merchants saw sales rolling in effortlessly. But now, with features like Taobao flash deals, JD.com's instant delivery, and Meituan's 30-minute doorstep delivery becoming standard, users no longer have the same desire to make purchases. The current state of November 11 is not just a result of changes in the consumer environment and consumer attitudes. Sales volumes and spending have never been isolated economic concepts. The Chinese economy in 2025 is like a massive ship rocking in a storm, appearing stable on the surface but with cracks developing underneath. Behind the declining sale figures on e-commerce platforms and the mass exodus of live streaming influencers are the manufacturers struggling to survive in this economic winter, teetering on the brink. If Hangzhou is the capital of live streaming e-commerce, the stage for the most vibrant online influencer economy, then cities like Shenzhen, with their manufacturing industry at the core, are the essential backbone that keeps the e-commerce engine running. Shenzhen once housed the most complete manufacturing system in the country, the fastest supply chain response capabilities, and the densest concentration of innovation tech companies. From research and development to production, from warehousing and logistics to cross-border trade, Shenzhen was the underlying operating system of the e-commerce world. But today, Shenzhen is undergoing an unprecedented transformation. Industrial parks that once had long waiting lists for tenants now sit vacant or up for lease. Once bustling streets are lined with signs offering subleases, young people dreaming of work and entrepreneurship are fleeing Shenzhen, while the city grapples with labor shortages, rising unemployment, and a slowdown in economic growth, leading to public criticism that Shenzhen is dragging the country behind. Do you know how many people are unemployed in Shenzhen right now? And where are all the people who aren't actively seeking jobs going? To be honest, the current situation in Shenzhen might be hard for you to believe. In the first quarter of 2025, the number of resumes sent out in Shenzhen surged by 87% year on year, and the number of newly registered unemployed people has risen dramatically. This is Shenzhen, a first-tier city. In Shenzhen, you can walk around and see a large number of stores up for lease, office buildings sitting vacant, small companies shutting down one after another, and even big companies cutting salaries and laying off employees. If you stay in your job, you might have to take on the workload of 2 or 3 people. If you want to quit, you have no easy way out, especially if you have both elderly parents and young children to support. You end up becoming a helpless tool stuck in a job without any options. Do you know which profession is the most saturated in Shenzhen right now? It's ride-hailing drivers, food delivery workers, and couriers. Many of the unemployed have chosen these low-barrier jobs as a temporary solution, but now these sectors are heavily saturated and the competition is fierce. In a high-cost city like Shenzhen, ordinary wages can barely cover the cost of living, let alone expenses like tutoring, extracurricular activities, clothes, toys, and so on. I feel that in today's world, it's not that we're not trying hard enough, it's just that no matter how hard we work, everything is so tough. The industries are all struggling and money is just too hard to earn. Over the past 4 decades, Shenzhen achieved remarkable growth through the expansion of manufacturing, thriving foreign trade, and demographic dividends and innovation-driven industries. But with changes in the foreign trade environment, the restructuring of global supply chains, and rising costs, the era when an industrial park could house a hot-selling factory has come to an end. Small and micro manufacturers are being forced to relocate, and the industrial chains that once supported the prosperity of these parks are now undergoing redistribution. There is a shortage of labor, and manufacturing profits are shrinking. Have you noticed how difficult things have become in every industry in Shenzhen this year? Especially since January, the number of unusual phenomena has been increasing. First, finding a job has become harder, and the number of unemployed people is growing. Second, many people in our social circles are traveling, making it seem like everyone is wealthy, yet many are staying in hotels because they can't find work. Third, when you walk on the street, you rarely see pregnant women anymore. Fourth, even ride-hailing drivers, delivery workers, and street vendors are struggling. Fifth, more and more physical stores are up for lease, but even those with no transfer fees aren't being taken over. 6. New homes in Shenzhen are not selling and the second-hand market isn't looking good either. Wealthy people have stopped spending and are just saving money in banks, while those who actually want to spend have no money. 7th, an increasing number of young people are choosing not to work, not to buy homes, and even not to marry. Foreclosed homes and bad assets are becoming more common. More and more people are drowning in debt, unable to pay credit cards, car loans, or mortgages. The situation in the market is getting really serious. You might wonder, even though the mask era is over, why is this still happening? How much longer can people hold out in Shenzhen if things continue this way? The true state of Shenzhen is hard to believe, but if you look beyond the bustling streets and traffic jams, the reality is much harsher. In a city where the average monthly wage is just over 6,000 yuan, many people are paying over 10,000 yuan a month for their mortgage. At the same time, many large companies are laying off staff and cutting salaries, while smaller businesses are on the brink of bankruptcy. Even street-level shop owners are struggling greatly. At the end of the month, many people can barely cover rent and utilities, and only a handful of businesses are making real profits. Right now, many office workers are stuck in a cycle of shifting debt around, paying just enough on their credit cards to maintain their credit score, living on the edge. In reality, life in Shenzhen is about one thing, just hanging on. Official statistics say that the average annual income in Shenzhen is over 300,000 yuan, but in reality, the average debt per person is probably closer to 300,000 yuan. This is the current situation for most people living in Shenzhen. The sales slump during November 11 is not the end. It's a reflection of China's broader economic decline. Looking back at the chain of events from the decline of Shenzhen's manufacturing industry to the sales downturn during November 11, it's clear that China's economy is facing an unprecedented structural recession. This is not a short-term cyclical fluctuation, but the concentrated eruption of long-standing contradictions epitomized by the decline of influences. The demolition of factories and abandonment of industrial parks in Shenzhen shattered the myth of the world's factory, while the mass exodus of influences from Hangzhou and the fall of live streaming e-commerce from its peak marked the collapse of the digital economy bubble. This cold wave accumulated in the disappointing November 11 data, causing e-commerce platforms to falter. The interconnected chain of events mirrors China's economic situation, where crises such as the bursting of the real estate bubble, an aging population, a blow to global trade, and weak domestic demand will inevitably lead to a tipping point.